It's a willfully amnesiac system. They don't remember anything you told them before. So, you know, every time I have an assessment, they ask me, why do you think you have PTSD? And they force me to relive it. And I've told them that this is making me worse. Please, you know, see my file. And one assessment I told them, see my file, and they stopped my benefits because of insufficient information. And it is, you know, I wanted to go back to work. When I was first unable to work, I desperately wanted to get back. But because there's no mental health support available, and this has been a long time thing, and I live in a garrison town, and a civilian with PTSD cannot get the mental health support needed for complex PTSD in a garrison town, because quite rightly, the military, they've earned the right to go first, sure. You know, they serve their country. They get priority. But there's no extra money made available in a garrison town. So if you're a civilian with complex PTSD, you can't even get anywhere near the top of the list because the entire military list is ahead of you. So no one tells you that either. So, you know, I can't afford to go private. I can't, you know.
So do you feel you are being, or an attempt to compel you back into the workplace is happening?
I think that there absolutely is that, and I think that the Labour Party should be standing up for people, and there should be a system of compassion that actually looks at the individual and treats the individual as an individual human being, rather than numbers to be moved from one column to another. And there is a complete disconnect within the benefit system to recognising that we are actual human beings.
Well, to be fair to Jonathan Ashworth today, that an element of what he said is about improving that process.
Well, it certainly needs improvement, but what I'm hearing is what they need to be doing is actually listening to people who've been through the system, listening to feedback from people, because they have made me iller. They have made me sicker because of what they have put me through. They have moved the goalposts on me. You know, I was in Varanasi on the 4th of December 1992. I saw people murdered in front of me. And, you know, trapped under 24-hour curfew. It was horrific, absolutely horrific. And every time I have an assessment, I'm forced to relive this. And I'm one of the lucky ones because I've got something that was well reported at the time, well documented, that I can point to and say, I lived through that. That is part of what messed me up. I feel so sorry for the people who were survivors of child abuse or domestic violence who have to relive those traumas in these assessments.
Let me at least reassure you, I mean, whether they'll be effective in doing this is, we can only wait and see if they get into power. But the government is saying similar things as well. Many such claimants, according to his speech, have to have repeat. You've described it yourself. Repeat work capability assessments. Yeah.
Over and over and over, and they've shifted the goalposts. They tighten up the rules. So, you know, whereas they used to accept that, you know, conditions before, they now go, oh no, we now don't consider that to be. I've had them write to me and tell me that I'm in absolute perfect good health. Well, that would be nice. It would be wonderful, but telling me that doesn't make it so.
Well, Labour says that they're looking at it. That's all I can tell you, Beth. You know, it isn't being ignored. So clearly they've been listening to someone who's had similar experiences to you, where the repeat assessments themselves have caused distress and haven't done anything to help you back into work. Back by your own account, it's kept you out of work longer. Beth, thank you. And I wish you well. Thank you very much for your call. Mark, call from Gloucester. Hello, Mark.
Oh, hello, Sheila. Lovely to speak to you after such a long time listening to you here and there, and now on LBC. Yeah.
Yes. All over the place.
Yes, but oh, I've got so much to say. I've written the whole about five post-it notes here, so I'm not quite sure where to start. Listen, well, no, you will listen. I know that, but I'm terribly nervous. So
big deep breath.
Right, I used to be a senior nurse. Around about 2006, I was developing arthritis from the trials and tribulations of being a nurse, I guess. And a patient came into the day centre where I was working, and to my horror, I found I actually physically couldn't give them the injection they needed because my arthritis was affecting various nerves and so on. Anyway, long story, cut a long story short, I ended up having to take early retirement. And I have to say, the Labour government policies at the time were completely different to what people are faced with now. It seems really draconian at present, and I think we have to give John Ashworth a chance, because honestly I found there was so much care and attention and help given to me through the same job centres, which have turned into a bit of a horror story nowadays. I was given a key worker completely voluntarily to help me get myself back into another form of employment. There was no coercion, there were no sanctions. The key worker helped me build my confidence up again. I did a short course actually for self-employment, and then because I've got so much of a boost just from this one-to-one work and so on, that I applied to various jobs, and I got a job working for a major DIY chain. I worked for them for a full 2 years without a single day off sick. I enjoyed it so much. And I think I got something very like disability tax credits, but nobody put me under pressure, and I think that's the key to it.
So the job centre, the key worker experience was a really enabling one for you?
Oh, absolutely tremendous. Everything about it was positive, and I'm just horrified to hear what people are facing nowadays, and having their diagnoses called into question and all the rest of it. I was just taken as I was and helped, and I do think actually John Ashworth, I've followed him, being a bit of a fan through his various jobs, and I actually believe he will do something really positive for people.
Well, Labour has to get into power first, Mark, for that to happen.
Well, we've got a couple of years to go, unfortunately.
Well, even then, we don't know for sure that they will do it. And obviously they want full power if they get in, don't they? Yeah, it's hard to tell what's going to happen. But thank you, Mark. Interesting to hear. I do know, actually, from a call, I'm desperately trying to remember the detail of it. I'll rack my brain during the break. James had a call about 3 months ago now, I think it was, about some great projects run by the DWP currently. Because I think where there is good practice, we should say there's good practice and repeat the good practice, embed the good practice and get rid of the bad practice. I'll rack my brain and try and remember what it was, but it was about getting people back into the workforce in really imaginative ways, and in sectors where there were real shortages as well. So that I don't doubt there is some good work going on as well. But clearly there is for lots of people. Lauren is a case in point. If she'd had the kind of help our last caller just had, it would have made a big difference to her, wouldn't it? And that's clearly not what's happening for her. Thank you for your calls. More of them in a moment. It is 2:48.
LBC.
Angela in Chester, your question to West Streeting.
My child is 16. He had appendicitis. They tried to discharge him and left him for 104 days in pain.
So many families in your situation constantly have to battle the system.
We start with questions to Prime Minister.
Alex from Chester has been waiting for a gallbladder operation for nearly 6 months. Alex's mum is listening to this. She wants him to explain, what is he going to do?
Mr. Speaker, it's not just Alex. There are millions of others who will have their healthcare disrupted. But we do have a plan. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
Efficiently, how Swale Heating wants your boiler to run. And some of our competitors say replacing your boiler with an A-rated version could save you up to £550. True if you live in a detached house with a G-rated boiler. Most people don't. However, you could get our engineers to service your existing boiler and make sure it's running as cost-effectively as possible. If it's past its sell-by date, we can install a more efficient model like Worcester Bosch. Visit swaleheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Forget work-life balance. What about your news-life balance? When the news becomes the noise, try The Week magazine for a calmer insight on what matters. Concisely edited from over 200 trusted global news sources, it's all you need to know about everything that matters. With your first 6 issues free, then auto-renews for $38.99 a quarter, cancel any time. Possibly the most balanced view available, without standing on one leg. Search The Week, free.
This winter, we're here for you. So how does broadband at half the price for half the year sound? That's right, superfast fibre for just $14.49 a month. There's nothing to pay up front, and it comes with a £20 money back guarantee. That's half price broadband, right through till summer. Get your skates on. The BT Winter Sale ends 1st of February. Currently $28.99 24 months contract CPI plus people amounts and increase each month. New customers only temporarily.
During the Air France rendezvous, take advantage of great offers. Until the 25th of January, book your flight to St. Martin from £586, or circa from £779 from London via Paris, return without tax. Fly with Air France, rated Western Europe's best airline for the second year on the West Coast trip. Anything is available. Air France. To book terms and conditions, visit airfrance.co.uk. CFI UK is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC.
John has called from Bristol to carry on our conversation about getting back into work if you are out of work. John, hello.
Oh, hello, Sheila. Yeah. You had a couple of callers on earlier. You had a woman on a while ago. She basically started my thunder. I mean, that could have been my call. I can't remember her name. And you had a guy from Liverpool, Jeff, was it?
Yeah.
Earlier, yeah. Yeah, no, they're spot on. You see, the thing is, okay, when I hear this rhetoric from John Ashworth, and it reminds me of the rhetoric of the Cameron, Osborne, Ian Duncan Smith brigade of 10, 12 years ago, when I went through the mill with the work assessment program, and it's the most humiliating, disgraceful, disgusting thing that anyone can go through. And there's a UN report that came out a few years ago that declared the British government at the time of breaching human rights, international human rights. There's an estimated, if you go to DPAC, the DPAC website, okay, disabled people against cuts. They're estimated over 100,000 people have died as a consequence of those Tory government policies towards disabled people going through the work assessment program. Now, what I'm hearing here, I'm hearing the same rhetoric, the same narrative, okay, and it's really, really scary.
But what are you hearing? Tell me what you're hearing.
Well, when politicians start saying, well, we want to get the over 50s back into work, the disabled people, the economically unviable. Now, don't tell
inactive.
me.
Nobody has used the word unviable.
Like Scouse, I don't know what he said, but economically inactive. It's same kind of thing, okay? Same difference.
It's not.
Okay. Well, economic. Okay.
They're two very different words.
Economically inactive, but we're not economically inactive, as Jeff from Scousland said. Okay, he said, that we've been we've been working all our lives, we've been paying taxes, and every time we go shopping, we pay into the system. The money goes around and around and around. Now, what I'm hearing with this latest rhetoric, you see, the thing is, now we've got a labour shortage, right, because of stupid bloody Brexit, right, that have scared off hundreds of thousands of European workers. What, now British politicians are saying, oh, we've got to start recruiting all the British retirees and over 50s and disabled. And what we're going to do, we're going to get them back into the work assessment programme, and we're going to go at them again.
But
okay?
can I ask you?
And we're going to kill thousands of more people. You know, I Duncan, was it I Duncan Blake? What was that film? That's not a film.
I Daniel Blake.
I Daniel Blake. That's not a film, right? I've been through that. Okay, I know people have died, right, through the cuts of
John,
the
can I
last
ask
10,
you?
12 years of austerity.
Can I ask you?
What I'm
Right,
hearing,
you don't want to speak to me in a conversation, so I'm done. Thank you for your call, John. You've made some points. Alicia in Wandsworth, hello.
Hi there, Sheila. First time caller.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Sheila, I just wanted to make the point of something that has not been talked about much in Labour's policy at the moment, which is childcare costs. At the moment, it's unrealistic for mothers to go back to work because the cost is too high, and the plans for a state nursery have, no mention in terms of how much that would cost.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the degree to which he included that in his speech today, but you're absolutely right. I think that is an election winner if you get it right. That policy.
I certainly think. I'm a mom. I've got a newborn at the moment, and
congrats.
I've got a 3 years old. Yeah, thank you. And I've also got a 3 years old. So if the cost is right, I'm making sufficient amount of money to go back to work, and I've still got a bit left after that. I think that's where that's where my votes will go ultimately. If they can get that right, I think you might even see Labour in the next election winning.
And what do you face? You've got a 3-year-old and a newborn, did you say?
That's right.
So you've already experienced childcare costs, have you?
I do. I obviously, at the moment, because me and my other half work full time, so we do pay privately for a lot. So I'm in a position at the moment, by the time, I'm going back to work, I'll be in a position to only have a cost for one child, so I don't have to pay for 2. But still, even then, if you live in London, you probably know that the cost you're looking in, for 5 days, you're looking over £2,000. So it's not really leaving a lot left after tax and everything else.
I mean, one of the examples that Labour has been looking at is, I talked about this with Bridget Phillipson, the Shadow Education Secretary, when she was in the studio with me. One of the things they've looked at, one of the models they've looked at, is the Estonian model, where childcare over the age of 2 is within the education system proper. And it costs, if parents choose to use it, they can still choose alternatives if they want, but if they choose to use it, it costs them £50 a month. Can you imagine?
See, that for me is, no brainer.
Life changing.
It is life changing. It is life changing. I mean, other models, especially in Scandinavia and in Switzerland as well, you're looking at about £200. Even £200 for me, that is realistic to pay for 2 kids every month.
You presumably are paying what? Something like a mortgage a month, are you?
Yes, that at the moment I pay £2,000 a month on childcare costs. In addition to that, you've got the mortgage, you've got the cost. Thank God my other half earns well enough for us to be able to afford that. But if not, we would it would probably be me never going back to work, as well as even looking at the state to help.
Yeah. No, it's you're absolutely right. It is again, I might be doing Jonathan Ashworth a disservice by saying he didn't mention it at all, but it certainly wasn't a major part of that speech. Maybe he's leaving it to Bridget Phillipson's responsibility as Shadow Education Secretary to talk more about that, more specifically about that. I don't know. Alicia, thanks very much indeed for your call. Alicia in Wandsworth. Coming up after the news at 3. Interesting study report by the Fawcett Society, it's a gender equality charity, has concluded that 7 in 10 women MPs have witnessed sexist conduct in Parliament in the past 5 years, and they say it is a situation that makes it harder and harder and less appealing for women to come into politics. So when has sexism, misogynistic behaviour kept you out of a workplace or made it likely you'll leave?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 3 o'clock, Labour has hit out at the government's anti-strikes legislation, calling it utterly stupid. Business Secretary Grant Shapps insists ministers support workers' rights but want to provide a safety net. The bill, which has been introduced in Parliament today, aims to ensure minimum safety levels in public services during walkouts. Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has criticised the proposals.
Not just insulting, but utterly stupid. There's no common sense about this at all. He says he recognises pressures faced by key workers, but he knows the NHS cannot find the nurses that they need to work on the ward. He knows the trains don't run even on non-strike days, such as their shortage of staff.
Amazon has announced 3 of its UK warehouses could shut, affecting more than 1,000 jobs. Sites in Hemel Hempstead, Doncaster and Gourock in Inverclyde are at risk. LBC's Louisa Jackson has the latest.
If they do shut, it'll impact 1,200 jobs. It's understood that all those workers will be offered roles at other Amazon locations, though. The company isn't just looking at shutting warehouses, they're also planning new sites for Pedimore in the West Midlands and Stockton-on-Tees in the North East, which they hope will create 2,500 jobs over the next 3 years.
The Ministry of Defence believes Russian forces have taken control of a small town in eastern Ukraine where 2 British men are missing. UK intelligence suggests Moscow's troops have made tactical advances in Soledar in the last few days. 48-year-old Andrew Bagshaw and Christopher Parry, who's 28, were last seen on Friday as they headed to the town to help civilians evacuate. Facebook's parent company says it will tighten restrictions around access to teenagers' data. Meta says from February, advertisers will no longer be able to see a user's gender or the type of post they engage with to target adverts. It will mean only their age and location will be used to show them marketing. And the average price of petrol has fallen below £1.50 per litre for the first time in more than 10 months. There's a drop of almost 42 pence since it reached a record high in July last year. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 20 points at 77.04. The pound buys $1.21 and €1.13. LBC weather, wet and windy across the UK this afternoon. Drier for a time in the south before another band of rain moves in. Highs of 13 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty.
Hello, good afternoon to you. Interesting report by the Fawcett Society. It's a gender equality charity, if you're not familiar with it. Looking at the experience of female MPs around sexism in the workplace, in Parliament where they work. 7 in 10 of the female MPs who were questioned say they'd experienced or witnessed sexist behaviour in Parliament in the past 5 years. I mean, this probably won't surprise any of us. I mean, some of the detail is awful. I'll get to that in a second. But there's been allegations of bullying, sexual harassment against a number of MPs in the Commons, and some of those cases ongoing and being investigated. But the kind of thing that comes through, and it won't just be happening in Westminster, which is why I want to talk about it with you more broadly. The kind of thing that comes through is women being told to their faces or out of the corners of mouths as they go past, that kind of thing, commenting on their bodies, commenting on their clothes, commenting on the physicality of being a woman, if you see what I mean, you know, talking about their boobs, talking about the shape of them, whatever size of them. It's the reason you got into Parliament in the first place. I mean, awful stuff. If I was coming into work and facing that, I mean, you get it in the street from time to time, don't you, sadly, this kind of stuff. But if I was coming into LBC every day, and thinking that could happen at a moment's notice, that some bloke I walk past could be making comments like that, or denigrating you and using your biological sex to do that, to denigrate you. It would be incredibly depressing and infuriating, but it's more than infuriating. Even if you're a pretty strong, confident person, and I think I am in most circumstances, it's still very... it doesn't stop you being wounded and diminished in your sense of your peace of mind and your happiness in a place when something like that happens. That's why people use it. That's why people weaponize that kind of language, because they know that it diminishes a person's sense of ease, and that's what they want. Just out and out misogyny. And two MPs' experiences are highlighted in the piece that I'm reading. Dawn Butler for Labour and Caroline Noakes from the Conservative Party. Dawn Butler was harassed about the tights that she was wearing, and ended up getting so sick of it that she took them off and put them in the bin. I mean, that should never happen. And Caroline Noakes, I've experienced sexual harassment, she says, over the past 12 years. A lot of it I've shrugged off and done nothing about. Other women MPs saying, oh, it's just banter, it's been happening for years, leave it. But she believes that they now need individual political parties to cooperate with each other on policies and protocols and protecting female MPs and other female staff from this kind of stuff. There's been a number of incidents, she says, where she's been touched inappropriately, inappropriate suggestions made to her and about her. She doesn't name any names, says she doesn't want to, but she says she doesn't have confidence that the systems are in place in Parliament to protect people. She said a minister told her to her face she was only appointed because she has breasts. The thing that shocked me, she says, if they're saying that to your face, is God knows what they're saying behind your back. She calls it low-level microaggressions as well as these open aggressions, only interested in the horrific tales of women being pinned against the wall by someone, when in fact much smaller, almost invisible things can be just as distressing and upsetting. She says
the closest Parliament gets to an HR system, but also they have to make MPs' life difficult if they think that they're being systematically sexist or racist, even by inference. So it has to start when you choose these guys, and it has to continue whilst they're in.
And again, I'm not pointing my finger at any party in particular, but the whips operations over the years have been questionable sometimes, haven't they? They've been bullying.
Oh, sure. So you have to know who you're choosing as a whip. It's an issue which goes, across the board. You have to the right people, men and women, as whips and as chief whip, and then those whips have to make it clear, formally and informally, to the men and women that want to become MPs and then become MPs, that certain sorts of behaviour are not acceptable. I spoke at the beginning about the kind of sexism that I experienced when I worked in television all these years ago. Actually, it is a bit better in the media now, and it's because management has made it clear that certain types of behaviour are just not acceptable anymore, certainly not within working hours.
But I think there are dangers in assuming X has got better or Y has got worse, because I've had very good experiences in most of the newsrooms I've worked in. The odd loser here and there saying something stupid, but nothing terrible at all until it would have been in my last couple of years at the BBC, and it was a very young man who thought he was good 20 years younger than me, who out and out overtly sexist comments all the time, sexual comments all the time, actually not sexist comments, sexual comments all the time, on air, off air, really weird predilection for just talking about sex all the time and pointed comments. And I was astounded, because I thought I had fooled myself that it was a generational thing, that older men did this but young guys had learned the lessons, but they hadn't. I made it formal because it was that bad.
Yeah, well, you always find an idiot. But generally, looking back, because I started...
But Diane, sorry if I may, on that,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was more serious than he's an idiot. If he would take me on, somebody 20 years his senior, with a status in the room that he was in, what was he doing to 24-year-old trainees?
But I suspect the reason he was hanging though at you was precisely because you were senior to him, and in some sort of subconscious way he resented that seniority. What I'm saying is that when I went into television at the beginning of the 80s, I mean, gross sexism was completely commonplace and no one said anything about it. You don't have that sort of gross sexism in television now. And I know because for a long time I did a late night politics program this week with Andrew Neil and Michael Portillo, and you just you know, for one thing, my editor was a woman. You just didn't see or hear the sexism that I saw and heard when I was in Thames at the beginning of the 80s.
Well, let's find out what people are facing in their own workplaces. Very interesting to talk to you. Thank you, Diane Abbott, Labour MP for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, and former Shadow Home Secretary as well. Have you had experiences in your workplace as a woman, and maybe even as a man, actually, because you know there can be, inevitably there will be people who will just be deeply inappropriate and try to unnerve you. That's what it's about, most of it. Some of it's compulsive behaviour and very disordered, but some of it is just an attempt to be top dog any way that they can find, which in itself is pretty disordered behaviour, isn't it? But have you ever found yourself at work on the receiving end of sexism? And really thinking, right, I can't stay here because it was tackled badly, or was it tackled well? What's going on out there when it comes to tackling this kind of thing? Parliament's a particularly unusual place, I guess, but let's see what's happening in other workplaces. 0345 6060 973. It's 3:17.
This is LBC.
Have you ever been caught out by payments you've forgotten about? Join over 2.5 million customers who are already using the Lloyds Bank upcoming payments tool on our app. It gives you early sight of regular payments that are due to leave your account in the next 31 days to avoid any surprises. It's just one of our many useful tools that can help you stay on top of your money. To find out more, go to lloydsbank.com/cost of living. Lloyds Bank, by your side.
Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot could make your dreams come true, but not the dream where you're being chased by thousands of geese. No, the one where you're living it up on your own tropical island. Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is £44 million. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Play on app, online and in-store. Estimated jackpot, account terms, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
Keeping track of multiple pension pots is hard, but combining them into one new plan is easy. Join PensionBee and be pension competent when investing capital is at risk.
I'm out of office this week and won't have access to email because as soon as I finish writing this, I will be tossing my laptop into a roadside